A few young people, in search of excitement, drove to a remote cabin in the mountains for a vacation. Facing the upcoming good times, everyone was very excited. As soon as they pushed open the door of the cabin, Billy urged everyone to pack up and go swimming. After Bailey entered the room, he turned around and unexpectedly discovered a painting hanging on the wall. Looking at the strange and bloody scene in the painting, Bailey felt uneasy. He walked up and took the painting down, only to find that behind the painting was a one-way glass window. On the opposite side of the window was Amy's room. Seeing Amy about to remove her top, Bailey hurriedly turned away to avoid looking. After some hesitation, he decided to knock on the wall to warn Amy. Only then did they realize that something seemed off about the house. However, after carefully inspecting the painting and the window for a while, they didn't find any hidden mechanisms. The group just thought it was a peculiar habit of the previous owner and stopped paying attention. To avoid embarrassment, Bailey and Amy swapped rooms. Watching Bailey undress across the way, Amy decided to cover the window. Unbeknownst to them, their actions were being closely monitored. In the research hall, the researchers began to place bets, gambling on what kind of ending Amy and the others would choose. Meanwhile, unaware of this, the group continued dancing to the music. To make the party more fun, they played Truth or Dare. When it was Amy's turn to face the punishment, a sudden loud noise came from behind. The cellar door suddenly swung open, and it was pitch black inside, as if hiding something. Annie immediately grinned wickedly and decided to punish Amy by sending her alone to investigate. As Amy cautiously descended, she discovered that the cellar was filled with strange dolls. The eerie scene instantly frightened Amy, causing her to scream out loud. The others, who were waiting above, hurried down to check. Seeing these strange objects in the cellar, the group felt a bit odd. As they searched through the area, Amy found an old diary. Looking at the bizarre and grotesque stories inside, she couldn't help but read aloud.
Dolor super vivo caro. Dolor supplemus caro. Dolor igneo animus.
As soon as she finished speaking, countless zombies suddenly emerged from the forest outside the cabin, slowly crawling towards the cabin. Faced with this terrifying sight, the supervisor in front of the screen excitedly announced the winner. On the side, the blackboard displayed hundreds of ways to trigger various outcomes. Clearly, each item in the basement corresponded to a different ghost or monster. The researchers were unconcerned about the five's impending peril, more worried about the bet they had lost. On the other side, the group returned upstairs to continue the game. Annie even performed a hot dance for them. Seeing his sexy girlfriend in front of him, Billy stepped forward and pulled Annie towards the woods to get intimate. In the woods, the two, lost in their passion, were completely unaware that a group of people was watching them. At that moment, Annie suddenly felt uneasy and pulled away from Billy. She wanted to take Billy back to the cabin to continue. As the two were about to return, the researchers released a mysterious spray. After inhaling the spray, Annie's eyes gradually began to grow distant. Billy also gradually lost his sanity and lunged at Annie. While the two lay on the grass, in a frenzy, a knife suddenly pierced Annie's hand. The intense pain made Annie scream loudly. Billy snapped back to his senses and noticed a zombie nearby. To save his suffering girlfriend, Billy quickly rushed at the zombie. But just as he knocked one person down and turned to escape with Annie, a bear trap suddenly landed on his back, pulling him to the ground. Annie hurried over to help, but the bear trap grabbed her shoulder and pulled her in. Then, in Billy's terrified eyes, the zombie took out a chainsaw and cruelly killed Annie. The researchers in front of the screen recited a prayer after witnessing this. They then lowered a gate, funneling Annie's blood into a statue. Meanwhile, Jack had just stepped outside the cabin for some fresh air, but he found the sky was completely dark, without any stars. When he looked down again, an eerie figure had suddenly appeared behind him, walking toward him. Seeing the figure was only a few steps away, Billy suddenly lunged at him. Panicked, Billy rushed to pull Jack toward the cabin. Seeing Billy covered in blood, the others hurriedly asked what had happened. They then learned that a group of intelligent zombies had appeared in the woods. Annie had already been brutally killed by them. Amy, however, did not believe these words and opened the door, preparing to search for Annie. But at that moment, the zombies had already arrived at the door and directly threw Annie's head at her. Looking at Annie's lifeless face in her hands, Amy couldn't help but scream. Seeing the zombies walking into the house, Billy hurriedly ran to block the door. The others quickly rushed to join him, and together they managed to lock the door. When the noise at the door finally settled down, the group began discussing their strategy. Billy suggested locking all the doors and windows, staying together to fight the enemy. But the researchers had no intention of following the group's wishes. They released another mysterious spray. Billy quickly changed his mind and suggested they split up to hide. The three aimless people had no choice but to follow Billy's plan. But when they returned to the room, the door immediately locked by itself. Jack, in a panic, shut the window but accidentally knocked over the lamp nearby. That's when he discovered the miniature camera inside, and Jack leaned against the window, feeling utterly unbelievable. Just Just then, a zombie suddenly broke through the window from outside. Despite Jack's desperate struggle, he was still dragged out by the zombie. With cries for help, Jack was slowly dragged underground by the zombie. At that moment, Jack's blood was also injected into the statue. Meanwhile, Amy used a cabinet to block the window, but it was no match for the zombies outside. Fortunately, Bailey broke the window between them just in time and pulled Amy back into the room. Realizing there was no way out, the two suddenly remembered the basement. When they reached the room, they discovered it was an execution chamber. Bailey then searched the basement for other exits. Just then, a bear trap suddenly fell from the sky and pulled Bailey up. Amy hurried over and pulled Bailey down, then grabbed a knife from the floor and stabbed a zombie. Only when the zombie stopped moving did she slowly relax. At that moment, Billy found the two and they quickly ran toward the RV, trying to escape, but the researchers weren't going to let them leave easily. Just as the RV was about to leave the tunnel, the researchers pressed a button and destroyed the road ahead. Staring at the endless abyss ahead, despair washed over the group like a tidal wave. But seeing the exit just ahead, Billy decided to try using his off-road motorcycle. He told Amy and the others to stay put while he tried to rush through to find help. He then revved the engine and sped toward the other side. But suddenly, a transparent barrier appeared, and Billy crashed into it, flipping into the abyss. Seeing this terrifying scene, Amy and Bailey finally realized that this was a carefully planned game, but staying put solved nothing. So the two had no choice but to drive back to the cabin. While the two were talking, a knife suddenly pierced Bailey's body. A zombie had somehow snuck into the RV. As Amy screamed in terror, the car crashed into a small lake nearby. Fortunately, Amy opened the sunroof just in time and escaped from the RV. After struggling back to the bridge, just as she was about to catch her breath, a chainsaw suddenly fell down. There was a zombie waiting for her here, and it immediately grabbed her tightly. Meanwhile, the researchers started a party, celebrating the deaths of the group. Just as the party atmosphere intensified, an accident interrupted them. As the zombie swung the bear trap and slowly approached Amy, Jack suddenly appeared and knocked it to the ground. Before the two could react, the zombie stood up again. Fortunately, Amy reacted quickly and shoved it into the river. Jack then ran with Amy towards the cabin and quickly hid inside a coffin. Amy then discovered that there was a mysterious space inside the coffin. Jack said that beneath their feet was an elevator, unknown where it led, and that the monsters were transported from there. In order to uncover the truth behind the murders and find a way to escape, the two decided to go down and investigate. As the elevator kept moving, they started to feel uneasy. When the elevator stopped, a terrifying werewolf suddenly appeared in front of them. This scared the two, who screamed in fear and pressed themselves tightly against the wall behind them. As the elevator started moving again, a figure gradually appeared in front of them. Seeing the mechanical cube in the figure's hand, Amy realized that they were personally choosing their own death in the basement. The anger from being toyed with and the overwhelming sense of helplessness made Amy's emotions completely collapse. With her painful scream, countless monsters slowly emerged from the surrounding darkness. At that moment, the researchers finally realized something was wrong, and Jack and Amy were about to reach their floor. They hurriedly sent a security guard to handle them. Unexpectedly, a dismembered monster suddenly grabbed Jack's leg. Taking advantage of the security guard shooting at the monster, the two quickly knocked down the guard and stole his gun. When the two nervously stepped out of the elevator, the voices of the researchers came from the air. They ordered the two to surrender, saying their role was to act as sacrifices to appease the ancient spirits below. They had also sent a large number of security personnel to capture them. Seeing this, the two hurried into a nearby security room. As soon as they entered the room, the security personnel started shooting wildly at them. They could only panic and crouch down beneath the operation desk. At that moment, Amy noticed a release button on the control panel. Looking at the countless monsters on the screen, she gritted her teeth and pressed the button. Immediately, a sharp alarm rang out, and the security personnel outside stopped firing. The surroundings instantly fell into silence, with only the sound of the elevator running. Before anyone could react, the monsters' wild feast officially began. When reinforcements arrived, all they saw were the monsters leaving, and a hall covered in blood. Then the sound of the elevator opening came again. As the elevator doors opened and closed, one monster after another was released, starting another cruel hunt. The entire research hall was thrown into chaos, filled with the deafening screams and growls of the monsters. Watching the terrifying scene on the monitor, the supervisors' hearts were filled with fear and disbelief. They began frantically calling for reinforcements over the intercom, even blaming each other. Just then, the entire room suddenly fell into darkness. When the weak backup lights came on, the door behind them was suddenly smashed inward. On the other side, a monster suddenly rushed into the security room and found Jack and Amy. Seeing this, the two hurriedly ran out of the security room, but when they turned the corner, they ran into a researcher. Before they could react, the researcher was slammed into the wall by the monster. The surrounding chaos made the already tense two grew even more panicked. Watching the zombie horde slowly approaching, their only choice was to jump into a nearby large hole. At this moment, the underground research hall grew even more chaotic as the monsters quickly broke into the control room where the supervisors were. Despite the supervisors' frantic gunfire, the monsters weren't hurt at all. Instead, they quickly tackled the head of security. Seeing that the monsters were about to turn on him, the supervisor hurriedly unlocked the emergency escape passage. As the two opened the passage door, a tentacle suddenly descended from the ceiling and swept the woman away. The supervisor, seeing this, cared for nothing else and rushed into the underground passage to escape. He happened to bump into Amy and Jack. In his panic, Amy stabbed him. Despite the supervisor constantly asking for help, Amy and Jack, after Jack's persuasion, decided to leave. When they reached the end of the passage, they discovered a mysterious altar. Looking at the 5 statues on the altar and remembering the researchers' words, Amy realized that these 5 statues corresponded to them. Clearly, they were the sacrifices for this mysterious ritual. As they pondered the reason for the sacrifice, a woman quietly appeared behind them. She began to explain everything to them. This ritual required the sacrifice of 5 people. The prostitute corresponded to Annie, the athlete to Billy, the scholar to Jack, the fool to Bailey, and the virgin to Amy. Each person would die because of the item they had chosen, until the last one, whose fate would be decided by destiny. They had to die before dawn to prevent the ancient spirits from being resurrected. Otherwise, the human world would completely turn into a hell. This explanation made Jack feel incredulous, but Amy slowly raised her handgun and aimed it at him. Jack felt the pain of betrayal from his friend, but the two of them had to decide who would survive. Just as they were facing off, a werewolf slowly appeared behind Amy. With her scream, the handgun quickly dropped to the ground. Seeing this, Jack rushed forward to pick up the handgun, and the woman immediately began to struggle with him. In the end, Jack knocked the woman down with a punch, then fired several shots at the werewolf, driving it away. But soon after, the woman attacked him again, and with one punch, Jack was knocked to the ground. As they grappled on the ground, a figure slowly passed in front of Amy. Neither of them noticed the figure holding an axe behind them. Amy, seeing this, urgently called out to warn Jack, and only then did he realize there was a zombie behind him. He quickly relaxed his stance, letting the woman knock him down to block the zombie's attack. As the zombie tried to pull out its axe, Jack kicked both the woman and the zombie down. At that moment, the entire altar began to shake violently. Looking at the severely injured Amy, Jack simply sat down beside her. In their final moments, they both sincerely apologized to each other. Then the altar shook violently again. Facing the impending end, they tightly held each other's hands and chose to face it calmly. This thrilling mountain journey was, from the beginning, a manipulated death trap. Every one of their choices had become a deadly trap, and the manipulator behind the scenes ultimately burned himself to death in the jaws of a monster. As the altar stones quickly cracked, the ancient spirits completely destroyed the wooden cabin. No one knew what direction this disaster would take,